Great to be back. Great to shake off the holiday rust, if you will, if you want to call it that. This week doesn't really feel like a holiday, but I guess it is. You know, I'm just because you're a sports person like me, or if you're watching this, every day is kind of the same because, we're playing games. I mean, we got games going on right now, or games going on later on today in college football and whatnot. So, but it's great to be back. And, we've got Andrew Galinas as our producer today. Cam Smith, our producer, normally will be back next week. He's on vacation. Well-deserved, I might add. Cam's done an unbelievable job on this show. Look forward to having Andrew Galinas aboard. Did not screw up his last name. I don't think I did. He is our producer today here on Sports by Brooks on Fancred. We do this every weekday, Monday through Friday at noon Eastern time. 9 o'clock here in Los Angeles Pacific time. And so we've got a lot going on today. We're going to be talking primarily, I think, about the Cowboys, that situation with Jason Garrett, which is a cluster bleep as well. It really isn't a cluster bleep because nothing really matters in sports media. You can get it wrong and no one cares. But we'll try to sort everything out. And I mean, we're really going to sort it out for you. We'll tell you what's really going on here with Jason Garrett and the Cowboys and the prospect of the next coach of the Cowboys and kind of work through all of that. We'll do that. We're also going to talk a lot about the Tua situation at Alabama because there's an agenda there. There's an agenda going out. And I'm not saying it's anything terrible or nefarious. But there are individuals that are, I think, propagating a sales pitch by Nick Saban specifically to Tua and his family to get him to stay, because that's what's really happening right now. I would not want to be Tua, by the way, right now. Why do we have a press conference on Monday for him to announce whether he's staying or leaving? What is that about, by the way? Are you kidding me? What? So we're going to get into that. And we're going to get to the bottom of it. You're going to know what's really going on. We'll do that. And we got some great guests today. I think probably the number one guy we could have on for the new year in sports media, prominent guy. And if you're on Twitter, I mean, you really can't miss him because he's everywhere. Millions and millions of retweets and likes and everything he's sending out there. He is Los Angeles Times sports columnist, Arash Markazi. He'll join us coming up here just in a few minutes, and we are going to checking my phone there, and we're going to touch base with him about I don't know if it was a New Year's resolution or not, but he has kind of remade his body and transformed himself weight-wise. It's really an inspirational thing. And he's kind of taken us by the hand through that process in his life. And if you don't know about it, you're definitely going to want to stick around. But we'll talk about that. And his handle on Twitter is Arash Markazi, ArashMarkazi, Arash Markazi, all one word. Been around forever. So we'll talk about that. We're going to talk to him about some crazy stuff going on with him right now on Twitter, if you're missing it. There's always something crazy going on with him and some of the things that he's tweeted out that really speak to me, being here in Los Angeles as I have for many years. And, of course, I've known Arash for many years. So we'll talk about that. And we'll get to some unique angles about the Los Angeles Chargers. Arash is a big-time top columnist for the Los Angeles Times, and one of his major beats, of course, is the Los Angeles Chargers. So he's plugged in. We're going to talk to him about that situation, and I'm going to bring you an angle. I'll probably do it before the end of the show. There is one guy out there that the Chargers could sign right now that they really need, that they could use in a big way. There's one guy that would actually sell tickets, fill seats. I mean, the NFL doesn't promote individuals, as you probably gather, the way, let's say, the NBA does, for better, for worse. And for that reason, I mean, there's not a lot of guys. People are talking about Tom Brady going to the Chargers. That would sell ticket. Not really. It would. We'll see what happens in the playoffs. If Brady wins the Super Bowl, come talk to me. Maybe. Not maybe. I think he would sell tickets with the Chargers to a certain extent. But there's another guy out there that the Chargers could sign right now who is available, who would be great for the Chargers on the field and off the field, in the ticket office, in the revenue office, whatever you want to call it, in the PSL office, right? In the sales department right now. And it's stunning that nobody brings him up. But then again, it's not stunning. I'm going to tell you who that is. And I'm going to mention him when Arash joins us here in a few minutes. So I hope you'll stick around for that. And then also, I wanted to bring in a guy because, of course, the big story of the weekend is the Titans and the Patriots. Wildcard weekend in the NFL playoffs. By the way, I almost never make picks. But if you're going to ever take the under in anything in your life, take the under of the Titans and the Patriots for this game, right? Take the under. Weather is a question. Belichick going against a offense where the coaching staff is overmatched on the Titans side, right? Offensively, even though you've got weapons like a Derrick Henry, like a Ryan Tannehill, who's probably playing as well as any quarterback in the NFL right now. In fact, his yards per attempt since week 7 in the NFL ranks first. Ryan Tannehill, the starting quarterback of the Titans, playing as well as any quarterback. A.J. Brown, there's a lot of guys out there, a lot of reasons to like the Titans, even in this game, right? I'm just telling you, take the under because the Pats are going to load the box and they're going to force Tannehill to beat them. The weather is going to be probably a factor in Foxborough. We'll see when when the front really moves in and makes its presence felt. But that's a pick. Another pick is I like the Eagles a lot against Seattle, with the two reasons being Russell Wilson is essentially, and it doesn't ever seem to get any better, essentially a one-man team, right? On offense, I'm talking. Russell Wilson against the world. It's like a backyard football game, Seattle, every week, running around, doing what he does. The problem with that against the Eagles is you've got one of the best defensive fronts in the NFL going up against a substandard offensive line. And there's only going to be so much that Wilson can do. They've got no running game to speak of, beast mode notwithstanding, right? I like the Eagles a lot in that game. And, of course, Wentz has been lights out, to his credit. Wentz kind of in a similar situation to an extent that Wilson is, in that it's kind of Wentz against the world, but we'll see how it plays out. The irony of, those quarterback situations, Wentz and Wilson, is no one seems to compare it to Tom Brady, which I think you should in these cases, especially somebody like Wentz right now, because Wentz has no weapons. Brady hasn't had any weapons all year. They've been missing Frankenstein, 87. He's gone, not part of the equation. And I don't need to tell you, the running game, no vertical passing game, no threats. I mean, I think what you're going to see coming up tomorrow is going to be a ton of passing out of the backfield to the backs for the Patriots, and that's going to help them, in my opinion, win this game. I think the Patriots are going to win an eminently boring game, 17-13, 20-10. 20-7. And you just know with Vrabel involved in this game, he's going to screw it up for the Titans. Something bad's going to happen to the Titans. It always does. So just checking in. I got another. Let's see. Gee whiz. Let me see here. Let me see. One of our guests just had knee surgery last night. So I'm thinking, I don't know. This is a dilemma. I'm going to tell him not to worry about it. Let's do this here. So, just so you know, producer Andrew, today, Jay's going to join us another day. Jay Crawford, actually, if you don't know, by the way, Jay Crawford, he was going to be a guy. I haven't even gotten to him yet. That's, boy, can I talk or what? Hadn't gotten to all of our guests. Jay Crawford was going to join us today from Cleveland to give us a breakdown of the very weird situation with well, it's not really weird either, and there's nothing weird in the NFL, whether it's the Redskins. Happy Thanksgiving, Dan Snyder, right? Did you see that at the press conference? The situation with Jason Garrett, the Cowboys, the Browns. I mean, listen, when the media doesn't hold anyone in the NFL accountable, you get what you get. That's why we have what we have. Nothing makes sense, and we're all used to it. But what I was going to say about Jay Crawford is one of the all-time great guys in Cleveland, and I'm sure at some point we'll have him on to get some insight about what's going on with the Browns. I mean, somebody who's inside the organization the way he is, plugged in without working for him. He's plugged in, and I'm really interested in what's going on with the Browns, because you're hearing a lot of really wildly conflicting reports about their coaching situation. And so the plan was hopefully to have Jay on today, but Jay had knee surgery yesterday. He's an adult baseball league guy, loves to play baseball. Jay Crawford, that guy from ESPN, he's now a news anchor who hosts his own show, daily talk show in Cleveland on WKYC in Cleveland. And so just heard from him, and listen, he was ready to rub some dirt on it and come in onto the show today, but I just, he needs to rest. He needs to take it easy. He is just one of the great Cole Pizza guy, 1st and 10. Thank you for that, Andrew, those references. Here's the thing about Jay Crawford. I mean, the whole embrace debate era with Skip Bayless, right? That started beginning on Cold Pizza on ESPN2 and all that with Jay. I mean, Woody Page, another big alum, worked with Jay for years and years. So Stephen A. I mean, Jay Crawford was the first guy who was kind of the referee in those embrace debate sessions that were developed at ESPN by Jamie Horowitz, who's now at DAZN. Horowitz had taken his act to Fox Sports. He was fired there. And now he's at DAZN. I don't really even know what's going on with DAZN right now. We got to bring Bobby Burak back here to talk to him about that. What's going on there? Who's one of our sports media guys. So I think we probably haven't heard back from Jay yet. Little behind the scenes, how the sausage is made stuff for you. Haven't heard it back yet from Jay, but want to allow him to rest up. He is an amazing guy, and I have no doubt would love to come on the show. Maybe he will. Who knows? But for now, Andrew, let's plan to just do our guest appearances with Arash Markazi and Tom Keegan, and we will reschedule Jay in the future. So here in a second, we're going to talk to Arash Markazi, and also we'll visit with Tom Keegan, both big time columnists. And I wanted to have Tom on. I wanted to have Tom on because we have a ton of guys on from New England and Boston, and the guys that we have on, we like to have people on who are as down the middle and objective and have no agenda, right? They don't care. They're third party guys, right? That's who we like to have on these shows that we do. So you can get the straight dope on stuff. And Keegan is a guy who doesn't have this long familia connection to New England. He's worked a lot of different places, but he's been around a long time and knows a lot of people, right? In and out of the Patriots organization. And so we're going to bring him in to talk to him about the upcoming game, obviously, but also he did a deep dive on Ryan Tannehill for the Boston Herald this morning. We're going to talk about that column. And I just want a guy who is as objective as possible, you know? And so we've got a lot of people like that. We haven't had Tom on in a long time, and I wanted to have him on again. He's a great guy. So we'll visit with Tom coming up. But coming up next, we'll have Arash Markazi, and we'll go over some of the things that he's covering, specifically with the NFL. I want to focus with the NFL and his New Year's resolution, which is an epic New Year's resolution. If you don't know about it, I think it's a New Year's resolution. But as we get set for our guest appearances, I want to talk about myself, a story that I think we've really been out front on here on this show, and that is the Dallas Cowboys situation and the coaching situation with Jason Garrett. I mean, nobody has covered this thing the way we have. All the big sports media guests that we've had on, if you watch this show a lot, you know that all of them, whenever they come on, I ask them, what makes you think that Jason Garrett's going to get fired? What's different about this year? So we'll get deeper into that in a second. But first, it's an honor and it's a privilege to have Arash Markazi of the Los Angeles Times back on the show. And I was compelled to have him on the show. I just had to have him on the show in the context of New Year's and New Year's resolutions, because Arash, I don't know if your transformation, your physical transformation, is related to New Year's resolution. First of all, thanks so much for coming on, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
But your physical transformation, and people can follow you at Arash Markazi, one word, on Twitter, is really remarkable. Is that any way related to a New Year's resolution?
No, but I thought December 31st and the New Year's was a perfect time to bring it up. It was actually Tuesday, September 25th, 2018. And so, like every New Year, I did have a goal to lose weight, and I would go to the gym that first January 1st. And, for whatever reason, it didn't happen for me. So I always thought it was interesting that a random Tuesday in September was the day that I'm like, I'm not going to continue with this. And, Brooks, what happened was I couldn't get the seatbelt to fit when I was flying. I was flying back from a trip and couldn't get the seatbelt to fit. And obviously, you know that you're big before it gets to that point. But that was one of those, like, oh, shoot, like, I'm like that guy. I have to, like, call the stewardess over and say, excuse me, ma'am, I'm really sorry. I can't get the seatbelt to fit. So, yeah, that was the moment for me.
Yeah, and I think that I know you've done a lot of media about it outside of sports media, but I think this is definitely something that inside sports media we need to really talk about. And I think it's been a real blessing that you've done that. So in what happened to you at the airplane, was that the first time it happened to you, or was it a continuing issue for you where that really prompted you?
Yeah, I mean, it had happened before, but I kind of had a seat where I can kind of get a blanket. And so I just didn't want to even admit to myself that I'd gotten to that point. It was 329 pounds. And then, so, now I'm, 198, 197 or something like that. So, yeah.
That's amazing. So if you could point to one or two things that allowed you to finally make it happen, what would those things be?
Well, there was two things I did. I mean, I did some type of cardio or working out 60 minutes a day. And so, I kind of mix it up. Maybe I'll do 20 minutes of treadmill, 20 minutes elliptical, 20 minutes of just walking, just something.
Elliptical, man. Elliptical. That is magical.
Elliptical is magical because it helps my knees. I remember at the beginning, I was just on the treadmill and it hurt my knees. So now I love the elliptical. And then watching what you eat. Generally, I try to under 1,600 calories. At the beginning, I was really strict about it, but now I generally know what is in the things that I have. So, I'll have like a egg whites or something for breakfast. I'll do like a salmon or a salad or a fillet. So, yeah, I kind of have made the conscious decision that it was really hard the first couple months, but now it's sort of like the way that I live my life.
Yeah, it's fascinating. We're visiting with Arash Markazi, a columnist for the Los Angeles Times, of course, right? But what's really interesting to me is you putting it out there on Twitter. The more I thought about it, that's something that could kind of police you to keep yourself in line, right? Knowing that everybody, you're kind of, on call now to everybody else. You got to keep it together. Is that part of the thought process there, or did you just do it?
Yeah, so I think that's why this has been successful for me. Is like that Tuesday, September 25th, when I began, I put myself out there. I put myself out there on social media, made myself accountable. Listen, people, I did that because I didn't want to let people down. And listen, if I would have quit, I think no one. In my mind, they would have cared, but who knows if they actually would have.
They would have cared. Or at the very least, the trolls would have gotten after you, right?
You're a quitter. You're a failure.
Right.
But I that was the thing that really motivated me at the beginning. And so even today, if you follow me, my workouts, it's been more than a year, but I don't work out every single day. So it's like day 330 today. So, just keeping myself accountable. And even if no one's paying attention, which they are, which is so cool. And the cool thing, Brooks, is like so many people who followed me on this journey. I get so many people who have contacted me saying, like, I'm on day 62 and I've lost like 25 pounds or 60 pounds or whatnot. And that's been really cool.
I think the hardest part, at least thinking back on, because what you're doing, I mean, it's analogous to a lot of things in our lives is determining, okay, this is the first day I'm actually going to do it. And okay, it's the second day. It's the third day. I mean, that's you, because you have that first day 10,000 times, right?
Yeah.
This is the first day. But so visiting with the Raj Markazi, Los Angeles Times. So one other thing I wanted to talk to you about, because I love your Twitter so much, the way you interact with people, it's just freaking awesome. And I think one of the reasons is I have similar thoughts to, what's behind what you're tweeting when you tweet it. I think we could probably, we're of the same mind. So you put out a tweet, I mean, from the Rose Bowl, and this is so true.
Oh, yeah.
Beautiful. I mean, obviously it's the most beautiful setting probably in sports, and you had the most beautiful sunset you could possibly have in that setting. And you headlined it with something like, I don't want to live in LA. LA sucks. Well, here you go, folks. Exactly. What's that all about? So what were you thinking when you did that? What was your thought process? And what's kind of played out there?
Brooks, like we talked to a lot of people who are like, I could never live in Los Angeles. How could you live in LA? Right. Whatever. And we know what that's all about. It's about the traffic and the taxes. Whatever. And I'm like, that sunset, in addition to so many other reasons, obviously, are why Los Angeles is so beautiful and so great. And the number of responses were like, there's sunsets all over the world. You're a moron. I have a great sunset here in Phoenix. I have a great sunset here in like New York. And it's like
Oklahoma.
Not the point. The point was this is beautiful and I love Los Angeles. But the joke this time of year where it's freezing, it's cold, it's snowing all over the world, the country is like, listen, you're right. Los Angeles is terrible. Don't come here because it's already packed. Traffic is already bad. But it was a joke, and as you know, Twitter, you can't really joke apparently. So a lot of people were like,
you can't win.
You can't win, but I love it. It's fun.
It doesn't matter, especially in the college football world. It's to a certain extent. Well, and we got to get into that before we're done. But and then you get Pasadena is not really part of LA, and everybody's splitting hairs. They just the politics and all that, People's Republic and all that stuff. But so, man, there are so many people high fiving you virtually. I think when you put that out there, But let's. I was just gonna do Chargers and talk about NFL, but I just gotta keep talking about USC, and I can't get away from it. I just can't. And I don't know if we talked since the Iowa game.
No, I don't think so.
But man, I was watching that Iowa game, and I was thinking as I watched the second half, particularly, and I know Slovis was out, and it probably would have gone down to the wire, probably, but it just looked like SC for the first time I can remember they were just outclassed. It didn't seem like they had the amount of talent or skill in a certain extent to Iowa. What are your observations of what you saw in that game?
Yeah, I mean, I think if Slovis is healthy, it's a closer game. I don't think that they win that game, but for them to give up 49 points, obviously no shock that Clancy Pendergast, John Baxter get fired. I think that was something that they already knew prior to the game. But Brooks, if you're a disgruntled USC fan and you make that drive down to San Diego and you still want to support the team, I mean, they gave you no reason to come back next season and do the same thing. And so I think once they lose to the Crimson Tide, the first game of next season, Clay Helton will be 13-13 over his last 26 games. I mean, that is why USC fans are upset. It's not a small sample size. You talk about 26 games for a college coach. That is a good amount of time to figure out where you're at. And the fact of the matter is that guy's a 500 coach, which is fine for a lot of teams. It's not fine for USC.
Man, there's something that kind of slipped by a lot of people, I'm sure. Might not have slipped by you. It didn't slip by Scott Wolf, but nothing slips by Scott Wolf, who really does a public service as far as I'm concerned. But when I heard, there's a couple of things. When I heard Clay Helton, I think it was a Clay Helton announcement that no coach was going to get fired before the bowl game. Do you remember that? There was some sort of report where it came from Clay Helton that he had made an announcement that, it wasn't get fired, but it was all the coaches, our coaching staff was going to stay the same up until the bowl game or through the bowl game. I'm thinking, what a weird thing to say. Then I see another report that it turns out Helton is not going to hire his own defensive coordinator. That's going to be Mike Bone. Wow. So, right. So I see those two things. And then as I'm watching USC, and it just looks like this team has a lack of talent now. Mm-hmm. They look undersized. Yeah, they're undersized. What was the last time? USC's calling card is they're a big physical team, right? And they have been forever to everybody. But now I think about recruiting. I mean, is this not something that's just going to decline? This is really the beginning of the end of this program. I hate to say it, but it is.
Well, it's the beginning of the end for Clay Helton, and it should have been the beginning of the end for him last season when they were 5-7. That was a disgrace. And so for him to come back, and I'm assuming they couldn't get the coach that they wanted, or they're using.
No, well, let's stop. Let's drill down on that. Yeah. What you tell me what. And I don't think anybody really intimately has the complete knowledge on this thing. But what is your thought process on why he's still there?
Well, it's such a low bar at USC. I mean, you keep hearing that he's a good man and he's a good coach and they like him and they haven't given up on him. I mean, these are just such low bars for a coach at USC. And Brooks, who was the first to tell you about Bob Stoops? That was a name that was being talked about. And so,
yes,
but listen, I think historically speaking, for whatever reason, and it's USC football and UCLA basketball, they don't get that big name guy. They don't get their number one or number two choices. Even when you look at Mick Cronin, that was not one of the top 2 or 3 choices. So why that is for 2 of the most storied programs and you're in Los Angeles, I don't know. So I think when you talk about that low bar, it was basically like, well, we can't get Urban Meyer and you can't get Bob Stoops. Maybe there was someone else that they thought of and they couldn't get those guys. So it's like, well, let's just stick with Clay Helton. And that's that's a bad reason, but I'm assuming that's why.
And again, there's no way to really know this. I don't think anybody knows it except for the people involved. But Carol Folt, I heard it yesterday on one of the stations locally. Well, it was the salaries of the assistants, not so much the budget for the incoming assistants, but there were all these backloaded assistant salaries. That's a really tough sell when you got Rick Caruso and Wayne Hughes hanging around. Maybe Wayne Hughes is pissed he's not on the board anymore. I don't know because of the rules. But is this Carol's fault? Because to me, there's no other answer. Because I can't imagine it would be financial.
I mean, here's the thing. When you give Graham Harrell a $1 million per year contract,
right?
I'm assuming you're willing to pay the assistants. So I don't know if I fully agree with that. It may have more to do with control, though, Brooks, because USC is a program that they like to bring in coaches who know the rules of the country club. And, Steve Lopes is going to do his thing. And, all of the other crew are going to do their thing. And they don't want to bring in a coach who's going to be like, no, that's the buck stops here now. All the stuff that you guys used to be able to do and enjoy, you can't do that moving forward. And I don't know if that's that has something to do with it. Because if you're Bob Stoops, you're like an Urban Meyer or someone who has a track record of success and you want to have full control of that program, I don't know if that's something that they wanted to have.
You just, and I'm going to get off of this. We'll do some quick Charger stuff. You just mentioned a name that I think needs to be out there more. And we finally kind of reached bedrock with Steve Lopes, right?
Yeah.
I think we've kind of, I've heard a lot of people talk about it over the years here in Los Angeles. They throw his name out. And when you're talking about the country club, all right, You've got Rick Caruso there. Well, he's not going to be there much longer now because of these rules of the board of trustees. He'll be around. I recognize
Yeah,
that.
he's gonna be around.
But no, and then you got Carol Fold, and we know who she is and what she stands for and all that. But who's maintaining this status quo? Those people, they are what they are. They don't really fit into that category. Maybe Caruso does, the country club aspect of it. I'm not so sure. What is Steve Lope's role here? Because it seems like he's the guy that if anybody is going to want to really lobby for Helton internally, it would be him.
Yeah. I mean, Lopes is the guy behind the guy, and he's always been like the guy behind the guy, whether it's Mike Garrett, whether it's Pat Hayden, whether it's Lynn Swan, and now Mike Bowen. I mean, if you're looking for a line or a connection between all of these athletic directors,
right,
it would be Steve Lopes. So
he's never been held accountable for anything.
Never. Yeah. He's like the guy behind the guy. No one's going to talk about him. I mean, he's the guy that Pat Hayden talked to before they fired Lane Kiffin on the tarmac. He's the guy that Pat Hayden talked to before they let go of Steve Sarkisian. He was part of. I mean, he's had a hand in pretty much anything that this program has done, good and bad. Right. I want to give Steve some credit for the success that the school has had. But listen, I mean, if you're trying to start anew, it's really hard to do that when you have a guy who's been in there in a prominent position for that long.
Yeah, in other words, correct me if I'm wrong, all those ADs were not qualified, really didn't do anything. Lopes was the AD. He was doing the day. Is that correct? I don't know.
The de facto AD, or at least someone who has wields a lot of power, certainly. Right. So yeah, I mean, when you talk about to use a Washington term, if you want to drain the swamp, really hard to do that when you have so many people who are still there from previous administrations.
That's a good one, man. That would go viral on USC Twitter if you brought that one up. That really would. We're visiting with Raj Markazi, Los Angeles Times columnist. Let's go to the Chargers briefly. And people have talked a lot about Tom Brady. That name's being kicked around. Here's my thing. If Tom Brady wins the Super Bowl, but is there anything the Chargers can do to sell tickets at this point? And why is it that Phil Rivers leaving? This is really the specific question. Why is it, Arash, that it's a foregone conclusion, seemingly, that Rivers is leaving?
Well, I just think when you look at the season that he had, that's just not going to cut it. So it's not like, I mean, if he had the season that he had in 2018, then I think obviously you look to bring him back. Here's a little bit of a fun fact on Tom Brady here in Los Angeles. More Tom Brady merchandise was sold on Black Friday and Cyber Monday in Los Angeles than anywhere else in the country. He is a transcendent superstar of the ilk of LeBron James. If you look at the statistics of Fanatics, that fan apparel website, more Tom Brady merchandise is sold than LeBron James. Now, we're in the course of the football season, so there's no one even on his playing field in terms of who they can bring in. This is not a signing that would help them win a Super Bowl. This is a signing that's going to help them move the needle in Los Angeles, help them sell tickets, help them sell PSLs. And really, he's the only guy who could do that. I think you mentioned that you have a name, but really, when you talk about Tom Brady, I think you're talking about in a class by himself here.
I don't know if you guys mentioned, I know you're on you've been on Dan Patrick, FS1, Fox Sports Radio, so many different players, Spectrum. You're freaking everywhere, man. It's amazing that we got you on. I really appreciate it, but I don't know if you mentioned it yet, or you may have, but Colin Kaepernick's the name. To me, if you want to move the needle, and if Phil Rivers isn't good enough, what I would do is I would let Anthony Lynn go, hire Greg Roman, and bring in Colin Kaepernick, because Roman was his guy, right, in San Francisco. That's my idea. But what, I mean, look, I would think the Spanos was probably be the last people to sign him. I don't know, but is that a ridiculous pipe dream? And let's say he was signed by the Chargers. Would that move the needle here in LA?
It would move the needle. I think it's a polarizing needle. I think it's a short-term needle.
But it can't get any worse, right?
It can't get worse. No, listen, I think number one, and it's not close, is Tom Brady. But, I mean, if you just want to move the needle so it moves in one direction or another, then maybe Colin Kaepernick would be the guy.
So with the span, I mean, your general thought. Do you think he's done? He's not going to. No one's going to sign him at this point. He's finished. Yeah.
Kaepernick? No, I think he'll probably be in a training camp. I mean, yeah, I mean, but it's going to have to be to a team that will give him a legitimate chance to start. Because as a backup, I just think that's what makes it hard. Is that if he goes to a team where he's the backup quarterback, there's going to be such a push to get him on the field, and if the starting quarterback is white, if that plays a role, there's a lot of dynamics with the Colin Kaepernick aside from football. I think without a doubt he deserves to be in the league, and I hope that he is in the league next year. But it should be to a team where he has a chance to actually play.
What fix a percentage on this? And playoffs may have something to do with it, but what percent chance is there that Tom Brady ends up with the Chargers?
I mean, probably less than 50. I mean, he should retire with the Patriots. I mean, that makes the most sense. But if they lose this weekend and he has a bad game, and again, this actually helps his case to go to the Chargers. It's that is time to cut ties and move on. So if the relationship is as bad as I've heard it is, and they lose a good game, and I think, but I still think it's less than 50 just because, listen, I mean, that would be such a huge thing for the Chargers, and generally speaking, they haven't made the smartest decision. So
are you buying Kyle Kuzma's denial about the trainer and the tweet about LeBron? Are you buying that? It was actually a political tweet or something, or?
No, I mean, listen, I think he's smarter than to do subtweets at LeBron James, but I do think their relationship is not great.
Kuzma and LeBron. Kuzma and LeBron's.
Yeah, well, I think LeBron knows what really happened. So and what his trainer thinks about him, and probably what the conversations that they've had behind the scenes about him. So I think that is a relationship that can be fixed, but I would imagine it's not fantastic.
Well, it's funny though. I haven't heard the media brought it up one time this year. What about last year when the rest of the team just abandoned LeBron? You know what I mean? It was like a revolt on the team.
Part of it too, by the way.
What's that?
Yeah. No, I mean, that's 100% part of it too, by the way. I mean, the way that Lonzo and Josh Hart and Brandon think about LeBron, Kyle Kuzma is their great friend, and he probably feels the same way. Now, listen, he's on a championship contending team. He has to figure out his role in terms of being maybe.
What I'm thinking,
I think there's a little bit of resentment about last year.
Do you think it's Kuzma's not getting the ball as much, not scoring as many points? He might be pissed off at this point. Is that part of it?
I don't think so. I mean, I think he knows where he is on the pecking, whether it's
and they're winning games too.
They're winning games, yeah. But listen, I mean, when he's gotten chances to show what he can do, he has played well. Christmas night, he played well. So I mean, if he can be that kind of a player and be that third guy for this team, that this is going to be a hard team to stop.
Well, you're going to have a huge 2020. If there's anybody I would go to Vegas and bet would have a big 2020, you're already huge, man. All over the place in the media. And congratulations on the physical transfer. Keep that going, man, because it inspires me. I can't thank you enough for coming on all the time, too, with us. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Arash.
Thanks, Brooks.
That's Arash Markazi of the Los Angeles Times. Does a great job. How great is that? That guy's amazing. He's awesome. He is awesome. And he is the best of Twitter. And we bring a lot of people on that are just must follows because of the personalities. A guy who we've had on a lot just pops into my mind is Peter Burns. Peter Burns, ESPN, I think it is. All one word. He's not on today. We'll probably have him on next week. Comes on about every other week. He's the face of, and I'm just bringing him up kind of a non sequitur, but he's another example of a guy. Jay Crawford, is another guy. We talked about him earlier. And Jay is so great. I was just texting with him. I mean, he just had knee surgery. And I'm telling him he wants to come on. He's the greatest, man. He's the best. He just had knee surgery and apparently didn't get much sleep. And I do not want to. I don't want to kill the guy here. Let me type out a message to him. Let me do this with Jay for one. Just bear with me for 1 second. So coming up, we're going to visit with Tom Keegan of the Boston Herald, and we'll get into some of the things that I talked about earlier in relation to the Patriots, Brady, the game against the Titans, which to me, that's a must-watch game. Not a lot of must-watch games, for me at least, during the course of the year. That Clemson-Ohio State game, must-watch game. It's a must-watch weekend. You know, when you had we had the semis and college football playoff. But I haven't got a chance to really stretch out a little bit on the Cowboys, and we're going to do that. And you heard who my wild card was, which elicited a laugh from Arash. Why wouldn't it, right? Colin Kaepernick going to the Chargers. That would make way too much sense. Now, look, if they're going to get Brady, I honestly, the more I think about Brady to the Chargers, that's a pretty good situation. I think that would not be a bad idea for the Chargers of all teams. They could really do some damage, I think, at the ticket window and on the field. I'm not ready to bury Brady. I'm really not. But we're going to talk about the Cowboys and we're going to talk about Tua, right, before we're done today. In addition to talking to Tom Keegan, a Boston Herald columnist, here in a moment. But so I did want to bring up in the context of Tua, the situation with the Alabama quarterback, that we're getting this news that he's going to announce his future on Monday. I put up a poll earlier today on Twitter, and I'm going to, let's try to take a look at the results here right now. And we got about 600 votes, and we're about 53% money decision over medical decision. I asked in this poll, Tua's dilemma in coming back is primarily A, money decision, B, medical decision. A, money decision, B, medical decision. That's Tua's dilemma is primarily a money thing or a medical thing. Why did I ask that question? That has to do with what I want to talk about in the context of Tua, and that is that his situation right now is being portrayed in the media by select people as a medical decision before the April draft. The NFL draft, if you don't know, it's in April. And I watched Greg McElroy, good guy, analyst, former Alabama quarterback under Nick Saban. He's on ESPN this morning. He wasn't on Get Up. He was on, I like to watch ESPN too and get the straight stuff on ESPN Sports Center. They do a great job there as well. And McElroy is on, and he's saying it's a medical decision. That's what's going to be the basis of whether or not Tua comes back. And I wouldn't be surprised if he came back. And McElroy and Tom Luginbill, who did the sidelines of the Citrus Bowl between Michigan and who did Michigan play? Jesus age. Alabama, of course. Michigan, Alabama. Luginbill and McElroy, they both worked that game, right? So they were working the Alabama bowl game. Now they both come out. Tom Luginbill, well-respected, long-time recruiting analyst who did the sidelines of the Alabama-Michigan bowl game a few days ago, right? He's on Fox Sports Radio yesterday saying it's a medical thing. It'll be a medical decision based on whether or not Tua can perform up to snuff for pro scouts, right? In it, in the combine or, in personal workouts, private workouts, whatever it is. Tua's got to be able to perform physically in those workouts before the draft if he's going to go to the NFL. That's the implication in saying it's a medical decision. I'm not putting words in their mouth. That's what they're saying. McElroy, again, ex-Alabama quarterback. By the way, Luginbill, if you watched the Alabama-Michigan game, you saw that he was the guy who interviewed Nick Saban at halftime. And I'm not saying that there's this nefarious conspiracy going on. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that people at Alabama have talked to those individuals. This is my opinion. This is an opinion. I don't have inside information to indicate this is 1,000% fact, but it's beyond coincidence that they both have the same talking point after dealing with Nick Saban in Alabama covering the game. And we're to believe that Tua's thinking is such that I have to perform. I have to show the pro scouts before the draft I can do it. If I can't, I'm going to go back to Alabama so I can show them. Right? That's BS. BS. That's Nick Saban. Right? That's his talking point. That's his sales pitch to Tua, to his family. And now he's got that being propagated in the media, placing more pressure on Tua. Just the fact that Tua has a stupid press conference to announce his plans, to say goodbye to the fans. What? Why? What? Maybe, I don't know. I've got all manner of sources on this, sourcing, not on the media, guys. I don't on that. But I have people very close to the situation in Alabama, and I've actually had people tell me that he is not coming back. He's going to go to the NFL. He's going to announce it on Monday, and that the reason he's doing the press conference, one person in particular, very close to the program at Alabama, great sources told me, he just loves the media attention. I don't know. I mean, it just seems like if you're going to come out and do a press conference, knowing the Alabama fans, all right, that's a big deal. A big deal. It is in more ways than one. To go and do a press conference to tell them goodbye. Now, I'm not saying that the Alabama fans are going to revolt or going to be, nasty to him. Well, maybe I am. There are some probably. There always are exceptions, right? But, I doubt that there's going to be this nasty blowback if he were to do that. I just think the fact that that you would call a press conference with there being a 0.5% chance that could happen. Well, you don't call a press conference. Why would you put yourself out there in such a way? Unless it was going to be something positive in the context of Alabama football. Why would you do that? You wouldn't. Unless you're Nick Saban pushing him out there. Going out there, Tua. Going out there. Right? This is really ugly. And as I think I mentioned earlier, Tua shouldn't have played. To me, a real tell as to what's happening now is the fact that he played at Mississippi State in the first place. Never should have played. The reason why did he play? He played because they needed style points, because they had such a horrific non-conference schedule. And that's Nick Saban, folks. That's Nick Saban. He's a big part of that. And those games weren't scheduled before he became coach. They weren't. He had a role in that. Now, maybe some of those games were scheduled, those non-con games, before the college football playoff. Perhaps. Probably not. Probably not. And so, but the fact that he was playing, and I'm like the only person, it seems like, on earth before that Mississippi State. I know there are other people. I'm sure there were. But just scanning Twitter, scanning the media, there weren't a lot of people talking about, why is he playing? That's crazy. Mississippi State's terrible. They just fired Joe Moorhead, which is another really interesting situation. Them going ahead and making that change at Mississippi State. I'm surprised. In some ways, I give Mississippi State credit, but in some ways, how can you when they hired the guy in the first place? That's a whole nother ball of wax we're not going to talk about today. I guess I just did, but want to focus on the NFL. And this is, of course, the NFL. But, Tua is going to be the second quarterback taken, whether he works out and is physically fit, or not, before April. That you've got credible people who were on the ESPN broadcast separately on different networks saying it's a medical decision, right? It's not a money decision. It's a medical decision. Really? Huh? Well, they can get insurance. Really? We'll talk to Andrew Brandt about that next week. Andrew Brandt, former longtime executive with the Packers, NFL agent, esteemed sports business expert, attorney, executive. If you haven't read Andrew Brandt's tweets on this subject, you need to. I retweeted one of them. Just go to Sports by Brooks and scroll down, and you'll see one of his tweets. It's Andrew Brandt, Brandt. Andrew Brandt. He was the guy with the Packers when Brett Favre was there. He helped to handle the situation with Aaron Rodgers. He was part of drafting Aaron Rodgers with the Packers, all of that. So we're going to have Andrew on, I think, next week to talk about how ludicrous the whole situation is. But next up, I want to go up to New England and check in on an old favorite, Boston Herald columnist Tom Keegan, all over the Patriots, of course, Titans weekend. And hopefully we can get a quick update on the weather, because it sounds like that might be an issue. Hey, Tom, how's it going?
Good. How you doing? And the last forecast I looked at is calling for like 2 to 4 inches of snow. So I would think the Patriots would have to be happy about that. They're used to crappy weather in the playoffs. So Patriots in that area.
By the way, Happy New Year. And thanks again for coming on. I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah,
Thank you, Tom.
Happy New Decade to you. And Tom Brady will attempt to become the best quarterback in 3 consecutive decades. That starts on Saturday. I don't know if he's going to pull that off, though. He's 42 years old.
I mean, there aren't more interesting situations you're going to find in the NFL than this Patriots team and what they're going to be starting off coming up on Saturday. But just really quick, can you explain why it is that it seems that Tom Brady, even though he has not said as such, and Bill Belichick, even though he has not even hinted as such, that it is seemingly a foregone conclusion that Brady is going to leave after this season?
Well, I think that it started when Belichick won the negotiation with a 1-year contract, and as is usually the case with Belichick, it's looking like a smart decision here. If he'd have given Brady 2 years and $60 million, are you looking at a $30 million a year quarterback now? No. So it started there, and now it's gotten a little complicated because for that reason. He's obviously unhappy with the weapons around him, but in order to get the weapons around him, you can't have $27 million eaten up by a quarterback who needs great weapons around him. It's an old catch-22. And I think that if Brady comes back to the Patriots, it will be at the price Belichick wants him to come back at, if Belichick indeed does want him to come back. And if not, then Brady has a decision to make. Does he want to retire? Or does he want to put his legacy at risk by going elsewhere to play when he's 43? Maybe that's the year where he really falls off the cliff. And if that happens, everyone says, you know what? It was Belichick all along.
Yeah, that's where I want to get into the pop psychology, psychoanalysis, because you're on the ground out there. Your boots on the ground around that complex, and you're plugged into the organization. It just sounds to me as an outsider, Belichick doesn't want him. He doesn't want him. If I can get him at a big discount, great. What are you going to get him a big discount? What are you talking about? This guy is a generational, historic player. Going to get him it's like Jackie Robinson, practically. A little bit different, but I mean, he really is one of those guys in the pantheon, right? Go ahead.
You don't pay him based on that. You've got to be cold. Belichick has run this organization in cold fashion, and that's why he's so successful.
Exactly.
Hold and calculate what is he worth now, and if you give him that number, and let's say it's $15 million, and he's insulted, well, I don't mean to insult you, but I'm not going to pay him more than that to be my quarterback. Good luck. Thanks for 20 years of excellence. You made my job a lot easier. Good luck at whatever it is you choose to do. We've all heard that line at some point in our lives, haven't we?
Right. It's not you, it's me, right? Yeah, we've heard that one. But so is Brady the type of personality that's going to say, I'll show you? Is that his personality? That's what I'm asking you.
Well, that's definitely his personality because he's so competitive. But then, yeah, that would be his first instinct. Then as he looks around, does he decide, you know what, better leave too soon than too late? I don't know. Someone that competitive he might just find the highest bidder and go, or the best situation, and go play there. But I laugh when people say that the Titans because of Mike Vrabel. Well, wait a minute. The only way that would happen is if the Titans don't keep their current quarterback, because Ryan Tannehill at this stage at 31 and having the best year of his life gives you a better chance to win than Tom Brady at 43 he'll be next year.
Yeah, talk about Tannehill, because I can remember watching him, and I know you've done a piece on him, and I want to talk about that and your perspective on Tannehill. But I remember watching him last year thinking, this guy can't play. He just can't play. And now he's the hottest quarterback in the league. What happened?
Yeah, what happened is I think he always had some talent, and he found the perfect fit. Sometimes you just need a fit in life, and something about Mike Vrabel's team is a perfect fit for this guy, and getting out of a losing organization. But you look at everyone, all Patriots fans will say he's 0-6 at Gillette Stadium and shut down. Just that's all the only data they need. Hey, you don't have to worry about this game. Let's start getting ready for Mahomes. No, well, look a little deeper at the numbers. Throw out the first three when Tannehill didn't know what he was doing. He was just a young quarterback. And you know how it is. Liars figures lie. You use whatever stats support your agenda. And right now, I'm going to throw out those first three games. And in the last 8 games against the Patriots, he's 4-4. In the last 7 against Brady, he's 4-3, because Brady was in the Deflategate suspension for one of those games. 4-3, and in 5 of those 8 against the Patriots, he's thrown for 300 yards. So this is a talented guy who has found the right home, and if he's smart, he'll stay right there in Tennessee.
So I was mentioning this earlier, and I'm not the only person to say this, but you got to figure that Belichick's going to load the box, try to take Henry out of the game. You got the weather in there. Is Tannehill the guy that can improvise or overcome those circumstances? And do they have the play caller with the Titans? Because that's also been pointed out, who can match wits with a Belichick. What are your thoughts on that?
Not too many can match wits with Belichick, I don't think. But, Vrabel, last year, the Titans beat him badly. So I think Vrabel's the latest coming from the Patriot tree, although he never coached for Belichick. He's familiar with their thinking. He's familiar with Brady's thinking. There's something to that, because former assistants have done well against him. The most recent example, Brian Flores, and he was so impressed with his offense under Ryan Fitzpatrick, just doing whatever it wanted against the Patriots defense, that he fired his offensive coordinator, Chad O'Shea. Is that the most shocking thing you've ever heard in your life?
Yep. Right. It's unbelievable. I just wonder, because I've heard a lot of talk about Arthur Smith maybe being in over his head, and who knows what's going on there, that Belichick's going to take him to school. But I don't know, which way are you going on this game?
Well, they've averaged 30.4 the last 10 games. So if he's in over his head, somebody's doing something right. I think that my gut is saying that the Titans are the better, hotter team. Now there's an if. If the Patriots don't win the game on a defensive touchdown or a special teams touchdown, which they do more than anybody. So, if the Patriots don't force turnovers, I like the Titans. I really do. I just think that Derrick Henry is a beast, and if you load up to stop him, I think Tannehill can stop you. And they're getting so much more out of their rookie wide receiver, who was chosen after the Patriots rookie wide receiver. So something is humming there that's not humming in New England.
Is there anything left in that offense we haven't seen, or we're unaware of, or may pop up for the Patriots? I'm not seeing it, but is there anything that you're seeing there? And what do you expect the Patriots offense to look like? Are they going to throw a lot out of the backfield to try to compensate for a lack of a vertical game? Is Edelman going to get better? What's wrong with Edelman? Obviously, there's something seriously wrong with him. It looks like it right now.
Part of what's wrong is he gets double teamed
on
every play.
Right.
But
no help.
He really does. He was putting on his coat a week or two ago, and he just winced. His shoulder was really hurting him then. I think his knees look fine. He makes his sharp cuts and everything. So
it's the dreaded core injury, the core.
Yeah, that's right. The ribs. And he really needed the Patriots to win against the Dolphins. And if they couldn't do that to give him a week off, I don't know, man. It looks like you're facing a really tough team in the Titans. And, it wouldn't shock me to see the Patriots figure out a way to win because they've won their last 10 playoff games at home. But I think the Titans are the better team right now.
What's the very latest on Spygate 2? What's going on with that?
Well, all the reports are that they really haven't found that the coaching staff is connected at all. And it reminds me a little bit of almost a punishment in search of a crime, kind of like the impeachment going on now. And that if Nancy Pelosi could just let everyone forget it, I think she'd take that and just let it drift off. And if the other 30 teams or 31 teams or whatever would just forget about this whole investigation, the NFL would be happy to see it drift off. But I think because they had a crew up there that shouldn't have been up there and it was sloppy on their part, I think they'll get fined, probably a big fine, and maybe a 7th round draft choice or so.
I don't know. Call me crazy, but I don't know if you read the Seth Wickersham, Don Van Natta piece, 2015, which detailed just this unbelievable systematic, industrial scale cheating system that they had with the Patriots for so many years.
I did read it.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I mean, and then you look at Deflategate and everybody is just taking for, and why would we take the NFL after that first time around with Spygate 1 and the detail and the reporting that went into that astonishing revelation that the NFL was part of this cover up, literally.
Yeah, that's why you can't take professional sports at its word ever, because they're not into transparency whatsoever. If you can have impeachment hearings on TV, why can't you have NFL hearings on TV? Wouldn't that be fascinating? Because then we could see what questions are being asked of whom, and why not just have more transparency in that way?
Well, it reminds me of a corporation where you have plausible deniability of a CEO, where a CEO fosters a culture where he knows people are going to go out and do corporate espionage. You're not supposed to be doing it. Don't tell me about it. But they have that culture, and God knows the Patriots have had that culture. It's a fact, right? And Ernie Adams is still there. I'm not saying Ernie Adams. Go ahead.
You sound like you're talking about college basketball now, too.
Right. Talking about everything. But I think it's a commentary. Ultimately, it's a commentary on the fans really not wanting to know. That's what it comes down to, because the media, to me, the NFL is saying to the media when they release this stuff about, well, we didn't find any fault with the Patriots football opera. I mean, first of all, why does that even matter? Because at this point, and this is what I've been saying from day one on this Spygate 2, at this point, it does not matter if Bill Belichick knew or not. It happened, and it's done.
It happened, and it's a breaking the rules. You can't
right
on the sideline. So I think there will be a punishment. I don't think it's going to be a major punishment. I just can't believe that they would be that sloppy. If that was their intention to help the football staff, how can you be that sloppy to go set up right in front of the Bengals scouts? And how do you do that?
Yeah, I can't. Bill Belichick, I don't know. I think he's a pathological liar personally, and I think he'd be a great college football coach, because that's how you make it happen in college football. You got to be able to look people straight in the eye and lie. And I'm not saying he's lying about this particularly. I just think it's amazing with the reputation of the that Belichick has and the Patriots have in the past. I just can't get out of my mind, Tom, watching the Jay Glazer worst case scenario video, and then they go back to the studio and all five, bless their hearts, all five guys on Fox NFL Sunday say, "Well, I still believe Belichick. He didn't know anything." I'm just that's the state of the league.
I don't think that he knew anything on this either.
I don't either, actually.
Yeah. So, but why should the NFL leave that up, and why should the other owners be happy with the NFL just leaving that up to us believing the NFL? I guess because none of the owners want transparency about anything. They just want to be able to have their little party and close party and keep paying us.
Do you think gambling has the heightened business of gambling has anything to do with what they're really doing here is really sweeping it under the rug?
I don't think so. I don't think that the gambling has been as big a deal as I thought it would be, or as popular as I thought it would
Same
be.
here.
You know, that just shocks me because I've been wanting this my whole life.
Right. We showed some, God, what was it? We showed an old 60 Minutes episode, I think it was, on this show. I showed part of it, and I'm sure you remember these. And then they had all the mobster guys, and they had the guys shaving points and all these things in the NFL I'm talking about. This is only like 20 years ago. And I don't know if the business has gotten too big, but it just seems like it's gone mainstream. Things have changed, and I'm still trying to figure it out. So ultimately, what you're predicting, like a 7th round pick or a 2nd round pick as it pertains to Spygate?
Yeah, I think a 7th round pick and maybe $1 million or something.
Wow, that's unbelievable. And so what's the bottom line on the weather? Do you think this weather is going to hit right when we're having kickoff, or give us an update on how this weather is going to play out from here on out towards game time? I
hope so. You see, you get your hopes up for a snow football game because that reminds you of all the great snow football games of the past, and then the weather changes at the last minute. So, you know, around here, the weather forecasts are wild guesses. So I just hope so, because that'd be cooler. It'd be cooler. I'll be there live, and it'd be cooler to watch on TV.
By the way, you know, I'm an old guy when I'm sitting here saying, "Tell us about the weather, Tom." And it's like, bro, you got it right in front of you, Slick. You got every three.
You know, if my father had been alive when there was the weather channel and the golf channel, he never ever would have gone to work, and I never would have gone to college.
Man, I can't. So, what? Give us your pick. What's your pick for this game then? The Titans and the Pats.
Okay, I'm gonna go 24-20. The Titans.
I like the Patriots 17-13. I think they're gonna shut them down. So we'll see.
Interesting. We'll see. I've been horrible with my predictions this year, so that means I'm due.
Well, then you can join everybody else, but at least you admit it, right? So many other guys are like, "Well, it was great last week," but that's it,
right?
So I can't thank you enough for taking. I know it's busy time, man. I can't thank you enough. Happy New Year's, Tom. Thanks for checking in. I really appreciate it.
Happy New Year. Anytime. I love coming out with you.
That's Tom Keegan, and Tom Keegan of the Lawrence Journal World. Tom Keegan of the New York Post. Tom Keegan, great author. What I gotta find the name of his Twitter handle is Tom Keegan Boston. I gotta tell a quick story about him too in a second. But let me find his book. He has a great, if you like baseball history, and this is an amazing book that he did. It's called Tom Keegan, Sleeper Cars and Flannel Uniforms. A lifetime of memories from striking out a lifetime of memories from striking out the babe to teeing it up with the president. Eldon Auker and Tom Keegan. And Eldon Auker was an old time baseball player who roomed with Babe Ruth on the road. And Tom got him. This book came out in 2001. And we talked a lot about it last time, but you can literally go into Babe Ruth's world through his book, Sleeper Cars and Flannel Uniforms, a lifetime of memories from striking out the babe to teeing it up with the president. It's a magnificent book. And, but Tom actually, when he wrote for the New York Post, right, he covered the Yankees. And at the time he was covering the Yankees for the New York Post, this Tom Keegan guy we just talked to, he would periodically go to AAA for the Yankees to do a checkup on their minor league team. Now, why would you do that? Well, at the time, you had a guy like Dwight Gooden. You had a guy like Darryl Strawberry. You had guys like Derek Jeter. This is back when Derek Jeter, this is the late 90s, mid to late 90s, when Derek Jeter, Mariano Rivera, Jorge Posada were all in AAA for the New York Yankees before they came up. And I was there broadcasting the games. So because you had so much going on with AAA at the time, this is back when George Steinbrenner was around, live, very much alive and kicking. This is really the beginning of the prelude to, this most recent Yankee dynasty that's now done. But this was the germination of it, if you will. So Tom obviously was way ahead of the curve. So here I was broadcasting the games, young announcer. of that AAA team. And I can remember, I mean, there's so many stories I could tell you of Tom coming down. He's such a good guy, great guy. But just, Darryl Strawberry's on the team. And I can tell you, Darryl Strawberry, of all the guys I worked with in baseball over the years, and I did Major League Baseball, the Kansas City Royals, but I did years and years of minor league baseball as well. That's why I can talk for 9 hours straight. Hey, everybody. When you're in Spartanburg, South Carolina, filling 3.5, doing double headers, right? In minor league baseball, you can do anything once you get through that. But Darryl Strawberry was on the team, and of all the guys I dealt with in minor league baseball in my career, which was over a decade, the nicest person I ever dealt with, and he was with us for a season in Columbus, was Darryl Strawberry. Darryl Strawberry was a saint. You talk about a nice guy. I'll have to talk to Tom about that next time. And by the way, Andrew Galinas, our producer, definitely check that book out. And baseball guy, right? You're a baseball guy over at MLB as well, MLB Network. And I want to thank, by the way, if you haven't heard, Andrew Galinas is our producer today. Cam Smith taking a day off. He'll be back with us next week here on Sports by Brooks on Fancred. Sports by Brooks on Fancred. And we do it every weekday at noon Eastern time. Some things I wanted to get to, though. So I wanted to bring up one more thing about, Tom Keegan. Just as an aside, there is, and I don't know if it's still there. Let me check. In Columbus, Ohio, where, of course, we were with the Columbus Clippers at the time, the Yankees at that time was a long time AAA New York Yankees affiliate that was owned by Steinbrenner. Steinbrenner's wife was from Columbus, and they actually owned a hotel called the Park Hotel, which if you're from Columbus, you know anything about Ohio State, you've heard of that hotel. It's right across the street from the stadium, Ohio Stadium. Well, we actually stayed in a separate wing that Steinbrenner built just for the Columbus Clippers to stay during the summer. So we would live in this separate spot of the Park Hotel. And I was sweet mates with Derek Jeter, and Darryl Strawberry lived across the hall. For me, I was an announcer. I was like those guys. I'd come in, do the games that summer, and then go off and do hockey, somewhere in American Hockey League. That's what I did for a while. And as I said, Tom Keegan would come in from the New York Post to report on what was going on with the AAA team and what was going on with Strawberry, their status, Doc Gooden, when are they coming up, that kind of thing. But there was a bar in Columbus called, and obviously it's not there anymore, or maybe it's a different name. And the bar was called, let's see if it's still open. Nope. It was called Tommy Keegan's. Tommy Keegan's, this bar in Columbus, and it was in the Brewery District. And as I look at it here in 4.5 stars out of 5, 155 votes, but it's permanently closed. But I remember, of course, I've got Tom Keegan here, the New York Post. There's a Tommy Keegan's, one of my favorite watering holes. It was. Used to go down there with some very well-known former Ohio State Buckeyes, myself. Go drinking down there at Tommy Keegan's in the Brewery District. That's what you do in the Brewery District in Columbus. You drink. So I can remember taking Tom Keegan down to Tommy Keegan's. And I think that it's like, you talk about a guy who should drink free forever in a place. I just remember, I'll have to ask Tom next time he's on what happened, because I don't think that they may have given him like one beer, something ridiculous. They weren't exactly forthcoming. Maybe there's a lot of Tom Keegan's out there, but Tommy Keegan's. 456 South Front Street. I have to ask Jay Crawford about that place too. But Jay's not going to join us today. Jay is coming off knee surgery. What a stud he is. And I guess he got no sleep. Everything's fine. He's doing fine. But apparently, I don't know if it was a major knee surgery for Jay Crawford, of course, the former ESPNer. He's going to come on with us today, but I heard from him, and he's didn't get a lot of sleep last night. Let's get some rest. We'll have him on here shortly in the near future, maybe next week. I want to talk to him about the Browns and the Buckeyes. No better guy right now to talk about what's going on in Cleveland. Jay, if you don't know, is now a news anchor and has his own daily show, his own show on WYKC, I think it is WYKC or KYC, one of the two. I've got it up on Twitter. But he has his own show, and he's kind of the mayor of Cleveland, and that's where Jay's from, and that's always been his dream to come back and kind of do his thing in his hometown, and so he's doing it. He's living the dream. God bless him. Jay Crawford's one of the nicest people you will ever meet, and he was ready to come on. Even though he's hasn't slept, I don't know if he's in the hospital or I have to check in with him after the show, but just a great guy, and we'll have him on next week. But before we take off here today on this holiday week, even though it's not really a holiday anymore, I wanted to touch on the Cowboys, kind of give you an update on what's going on with that, and I also want to check the magic and miracle that is Twitter. Let's check out what's going on right now on Twitter with Jason Garrett. Do we have any news on Jason Garrett? Let's see. Let's go back here and see one more time. Please bear with me here on Sports by Brooks on Fancred. So it does not appear that anything has happened since last night. So here's what happened. Jason Garrett, for all we know, has not been fired. And I maintain he will not be fired, right? Because I always have maintained that, as you know, if you watch this show over the last 3 months. Hasn't happened yet officially. It just hasn't, regardless of what ESPN's saying. It is odd, is it? Not a little bit odd that you're not hearing from Adam Schefter or Chris Mortensen or, we've heard from Ed Werder. That's it. And Ed this morning, Ed Werder, longtime ESPN reporter, just came back after a long hiatus. He was let go in the mass layoffs a while ago. Now he's back. And Ed, by the way, Ed's a great reporter, not questioning his report. Nobody is. And that's why this is a big story, because this really speaks to Ed Werder's credibility. But so Ed Werder, at 6:00 yesterday, and this is where this whole discussion of Jason Garrett today, anything you hear on the radio or watch on TV today at all, doesn't matter if it's ESPN or anything about Jason Garrett, and you're probably going to hear them say, the Cowboys have fired him or they're moving on. Whatever that conversation is, it stems from a tweet from Ed, one tweet that I'm going to read to you yesterday at 6:00 from Cowboys ESPN Dallas reporter Ed Werder. And here is the tweet that everything is based on right now. All right. The tweet from Ed Werder yesterday on his Twitter account, quote, Cowboys Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones have moved slowly and with abundance of care and respect for Jason Garrett. That phase expected to conclude soon with Garrett not part of the organization. Next phase to involve candidate interviews will begin quickly thereafter. Let me repeat this one more time. Cowboys Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones have moved slowly and with an abundance of care and respect for Jason Garrett. That phase expected to conclude soon with Garrett not part of the organization. The next phase to involve candidate interviews, that'll begin quickly thereafter. All right. Now, Ed Werder has not tweeted about Jason Garrett and the Cowboys since then. Nothing. Zero. He was on ESPN this morning, right, to talk about the situation. And what happened was, after that tweet came out, ESPN itself tweeted out the following an hour later. This is last night. All right. And this is where everything today is coming from. So ESPN, remember that tweet from Ed Werder. Now let me read you what ESPN tweeted, the organization, right, at ESPN on Twitter. Quote, Cowboys owner Jerry Jones and executive vice president Stephen Jones have decided that Jason Garrett will not be part of the organization moving forward, a source tells Ed Werder. Right? One more time. Let me go through fast what Ed tweeted, just the point that matters. This is what an hour earlier yesterday, Ed Werder tweeted. Cowboys Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones have moved slowly and with an abundance of care and respect for Jason Garrett. That phase is expected to conclude with Garrett not part of the organization. An hour later yesterday, ESPN's tweet. Cowboys owner Jerry Jones and executive vice president Stephen Jones have decided that Jason Garrett will not be part of the organization moving forward. A source tells Ed Werder. Well, Werder didn't cite any sources. He didn't cite anything specific at all. Didn't reference any sourcing at all in his tweet. So now, this morning, as I was tracking coverage of the story, Ed Werder was on, and it looked like a hostage crisis situation. He did not look happy. He did not look happy, Ed Werder, this morning, for a couple of different reasons. Because by the time we got to this morning on ESPN, the bottom line scroll said, quote, this is me, but this is what was on the screen. And it's, for all I know, it's everywhere now. But it started this morning, and it was the bottom line scroll, Ed Werder, Cowboys moving on from Jason Garrett after 10 seasons, unquote. Now, you're going to hear a lot of people talk about just the story in general, right? And they're going to talk about Garrett being fired, this, that, and the other. The bottom line is the Cowboys haven't said anything, right? They said nothing. And so to say, well, I think it's a foregone conclusion. No, it's not. No, it's not. Why? Because this is the only team in the league, the only team in my lifetime, maybe the only team in history, where the owner of the team in NFL history, how many team owners, after that team plays its game, holds a press conference in the locker room with the media after the game? How many owners, right, have regularly scheduled radio and television shows during the week, during the season? How many? One, right? Unprecedented. I'm not aware it's ever happened. It's happened for however long Jerry Jones has owned the Cowboys, right? So there are no foregone conclusions when it comes to the Cowboys. Zero, zippo. You don't know anything. The way they're handling this is unprecedented. It's bizarre. It's weird. At least it is in the context of how business is done normally in the NFL. It's not done like this. So the idea, well, abundance of care and respect. And, I by the way, before I move past and move on from Ed Werder, you know what happened when they brought Ed Werder on from his den, in Dallas, wherever he is? Poor guy. I never thought I'd say that about Ed Werder, but I do kind of feel a little sorry for him. Because I don't know. You could look at it a couple of different ways. Was he throwing that out there just so he could say, but last night, just so he could say he was first, I guess? I don't know. It's like, if you're going to report that, Ed, report that he's being fired. Have some balls, right? I did find it interesting this morning. So it comes off as a little unseemly. I mean, where's Adam Schefter? I mean, I guess that's why ESPN would say, well, that's why we have Ed Werder, because he's really embedded. But so this morning, Werder goes on ESPN2 Sports Center, and they're interviewing him. And again, it looks like, the guy is like a fighter pilot who's gone down in North Korea, and they're holding him hostage, and they put the video up, and he's blinking code. Ed Werder, he looks like a hostage. He's been taken hostage in his dining room. So, and the anchor asks, or I guess Ed Werder actually said during his appearance this morning that he was not sure if Jason Garrett knew that he had been fired yet. That was this morning. All right. ESPN was essentially reporting that he had been fired last night. What they had conflated out of Ed's earlier tweet, which all but said he was going to be fired. That phase expected to conclude soon with Garrett not part of organization. You're going, buddy. But so Ed Werder goes on this morning and says, I'm not so sure Garrett even knows he's been fired yet. What? How would he not know, Ed, if you put that out there? And then ESPN followed it up. And then before Ed comes on ESPN yesterday morning, they've changed it to, in the bottom line box, Cowboys moving on from Jason Garrett after 10 seasons. Ed Werder. So after Werder says he's not so sure that Garrett knew about the fact that he was fired, as he was saying this morning, like Garrett still didn't know, the anchor says to Werder, so Ed, are you saying that Jason Garrett might be flipping on the television and just finding out right now that he's fired? And safe to assume, based on Ed's response, he wasn't counting on a question like that because he completely changed the subject and moved on. He didn't even address the question. So now I'm pointing this out because nobody else points this out. That's why we're doing Sports by Brooks on Fancred. That's why I'm grateful to be doing the show. It's great to be here every weekday. And this is the way we cover stuff, just like the way we covered the Tua situation. I'm telling you what's happening. I'm telling you about the Saban agenda that's going on out there. It's not a conspiracy. It's reporting facts, what's happening, what's being reported. And it's bullcrap as it pertains to Tua. It's a Saban agenda that's being propagated by a couple of guys who work at ESPN, who I don't think are bad guys, but I don't like what I'm watching and hearing when it comes to Tua. And now we bring you this and show you what's really going on. So everything you're hearing is based on this muck, this jumbled up mess. And of course, that exists because there's no accountability, as to if you're a reporter, it doesn't matter if you're right or wrong. Just the fact that the Patriots, are not being held accountable at all. Zero, none for Spygate 2. 7th round pick, 2nd round pick, any pick, doesn't matter. Could be the first overall pick, doesn't matter. That means nothing, right? They're not being held accountable. And the reason they're not being held accountable at all by the NFL is, what illustrates the reason they're not being held accountable is the fact that you probably didn't even know that the NFL has come out and said, well, we found no wrongdoing from the football operation on Spygate. Wasn't their fault. Okay. Well, the NFL was part of the cover-up. We know that for a fact. And I mean really part of it. I mean getting rid of the evidence, right? We know that for a fact. Thanks to the NFL, the Patriots won 3 Super Bowls, okay, early on. The NFL was part of that. There's no getting around that. They're directly part of covering up, destroying evidence related to this systematic system of cheating that the Patriots, proprietary system they had developed. Now that same NFL with the same leadership, so-called leadership, Roger Goodell, the guy that, a Patriot fan like a Patriot apologist like Dave Portnoy creates this effing, I'm so tempted to use the word, right? The clown shirt of Goodell, right? That guy, Roger Goodell, he's a clown. No, he's not. He's the fixer. They should put him in I should do this. Andrew, I should do this t-shirt. We should do a t-shirt of, Winston Wolfe, the Pulp Fiction character who was the fixer for Samuel L. Jackson and John Travolta in Pulp Fiction. Winston Wolfe. Remember that guy with the suit? They all had the black suits. We should create like a image of Travolta, Samuel L. Jackson from Pulp Fiction, their characters in the suits, and then the Harvey Keitel, Winston Wolfe character. Right. But we'll replace Keitel's face with Roger Goodell because that's what he really is. Maybe we'll send that idea. Dave Portnoy can grab that and put that on a shirt. because that's what Goodell really is. Actually, what we could do is we could put Belichick, I don't know if people would understand that reference anymore. You might have to have the car there where the body exploded with blood everywhere right next to it. People still wouldn't know. The movie's so old now. But you could make, Bob Kraft or Belichick could be the Travolta character, whatever. But you get what I'm saying. Goodell's their fixer. He is an accomplice. He is the guy who covers things up, sweeps them under the rug. So rather ironic, but so I digress onto Spygate, but it does relate in the way that, I mean, this ridiculous situation with the Cowboys, you can't, don't listen to anyone or anything. Just wait till everything plays out. And literally until you see a new guy on the sideline or at training camp or show up at a press conference, then we'll know what's going on. Other than that, what credibility does the media have? I mean, but the presentation by the NFL of the situation of Spygate 2 is a direct reflection of what the NFL thinks of the media. Doesn't think anything of the media. And, ultimately it's us, it's the fans. We're responsible for holding the media accountable. Who is going to hold the media accountable if the people don't? We are the media. The people, and media is people, right? And so that's my whole point in talking about Spygate 2. We needed to talk about and update that for you anyway today, because we've been talking about Spygate 2 a lot. And I wanted to talk about this Cowboys thing and drill down on that for you. But I wanted to also, and by the way, Jane Slater is we're going to probably get her on the show. Hopefully we're closing in on getting Jane Slater from NFL Network on the show. She is one of the leaders of the Cowboy media group, people that cover the beat, along with Clarence Hill Jr. We had him on recently, a couple of weeks ago. Covers the beat. Newey Scruggs, of course, Dallas guy. And of course, we got the guys at 105.3 The Fan. With the mybookie.ag segments that we do with them. So we're going to continue to track the story. But let me see what Jane has. Let's see. All right. She doesn't have anything other than 2 hours ago, she tweeted, at this hour, this is on the Cowboys in Garrett, Jane Slater of the NFL Network, who's in Dallas, tweets, at this hour, 2 hours ago, coaches and players tell me they have not been informed of any changes at the head coaching position. Cowboys head coach Jason Garrett himself has yet to respond to my inquiries. If a decision is imminent, it has still not been conveyed. Yeah, right. Okay. So there you have it. That's Jane Slater. I wanted to throw out not a couple of names. Here are some of the names in the last 24 hours I have heard in the media for this job, this Cowboys job. And I want you to think about the coaching job in general with this delay. What's happening with this delay? Is it possible over the past 72 hours that maybe Jerry Jones is hedging a little bit and maybe thinking about bringing Garrett back if he can't get people he wants? Is that possible? Hell yeah, it's possible. Anything's possible. Anything's possible with a guy like Garrett, who last year, right, had his contract expire. 1 year left on his deal. 1 year. He's coaching out his contract. This year. He's coaching his contract out. So one of the conditions of him coming back, reportedly, was that Jason Garrett this season demanded play calling ability. He wanted to be the play calling guy and on offense and have that guaranteed, right? And in exchange, he'd come back and coach with no contract extension. Just this is the last year of his deal. I'd have to look it up, right? But I do know that in exchange for coaching without a contract extension, he was going to get all the play calling until Jerry Jones hired Kellen Moore and said, sorry, too bad. You'll notice what happened. Let me see if I can find it. All right. So what happened was there was no contract extension coming into the season for Jason Garrett. And so he demanded the ability to call the plays if he was to receive an extension or if he was not to receive an extension. You get the idea. Instead, Jones hires Kellen Moore, the OC, right? And Garrett doesn't get what he wants. Now, it's been reported, and I don't doubt that Garrett has taken over play calling at times. We don't have anything definitive on that, anything concrete, especially red zone, that kind of thing. All very fuzzy. That's how it works with Jerry Jones and the Cowboys. Who knows? Who knows who's talking to us when they open their mouth? But after the final game of the season for the Cowboys this year, Jones, as part of his big staged press conference, which lasted like half an hour after the game with reporters, Jones said that he had initiated the coaching changes on the staff for, this past season's team, as if people didn't know. But what he was really doing in saying that was Jerry Jones was guy saying, I hired Kellen Moore. I effed Jason Garrett. And it was almost a mea culpa by Jones to say, you know what? Part of the problem with the offense, part of the problem we've got this situation is it's my fault. Well, duh, the whole thing's your fault. So that's what happened there. But that the reason I bring that up is, dude, anything's possible. And anything's possible when I tell you the names that serious media people have thrown out in the past 24 hours before this show that I logged. So here are some of the names that I've heard for the Cowboys job. Urban Meyer, Josh McDaniels, who Adam Kaplan, friend of the show, we got to get him back on, NFL Insider, CBS Sports, Sirius XM. He reported today that Josh McDaniels is going to be interviewing for the Browns job next week. But also, Josh McDaniels' name is certainly out there when it comes to the Cowboys. So you've got Josh McDaniels, Dan Campbell, former assistant of the Cowboys, now with Sean Payton and the Saints. Dan Mullen is a name that I heard today. Coach Dak Prescott, maybe that name's been out there. I haven't heard it. Dan Mullen, Florida. Lincoln Riley, of course. ESPN2 this morning, Tony Dungy's name comes out. Marcus Spears. Tony Dungy. Hasn't coached since 2008. Mike Zimmer, a guy that Florio's all over right now. Mike Zimmer, of course, the Cowboys. I'm sorry, the Vikings. See what happens with the Saints game. But Zimmer could be in play. Gary Kubiak, another name. Co-coach Jason Garrett, Gary Kubiak. Doesn't make any sense. Kubiak is an offensive guy. I don't know why Garrett would agree to that, but who knows? Jason Witten is a guy whose name's being kicked around, right? Matt Rule, we've all heard that name. Those are some of the names I've heard. Urban Meyer, Josh McDaniels, Dan Campbell, Dan Mullen. These aren't just message board names. These are names coming from legitimate people. And you know what? I'll bet there's many, many more. In fact, I probably am missing some obvious one. But so, I mean, who knows? But it just comes off to me as Jerry Jones, wanted to, have his cake, any way he likes, eat it too. That sort of thing. There are no rules. He just does whatever he wants. Bill Cowher, yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at this point to see Bill Cowher's name. Andrew posits. I've been waiting to use that word all day. Posits that possibility. Bill Cowher. Who knows? I don't know. I mean, listen, a logical person would say you're going to get, I actually, when Tony Dungy's name came up today from Marcus Spears, you know what, dude, that kind of makes sense. His personality, and obviously a learned man, that kind of makes sense. But you just have to believe that. I mean, put it this way: somebody like Mike Zimmer, okay? Unless there's something about their relationship, Zimmer and Jones, we don't know about, barring the Vikings firing Zimmer, which they're not going to, right? Why would you leave the Vikings to go coach for a guy, this owner, who does what he does, which is undermining you 24/7, where the players can walk down the hall and talk to the owner if they don't like what you're saying? That's exactly what happens. I mean, it literally happened. And this is the only team where it happens all the time. Sure, it happens to a certain extent in other organizations. Haskins and Snyder in DC comes to mind. That it was very telling that Snyder was involved in pulling Haskins out, in the second to last game of the Redskins. Remember that? And that may, inform us a little bit more about the situation with Gruden, what happened there, what was going on with Allen, who was doing what, and maybe Snyder was a lot more involved intimately in what was happening with that organization, player personnel on the field, than we've been led to believe. And maybe that's why Allen stuck around as long as he did, because perhaps he wasn't doing as much as we were led to believe. Maybe Snyder was intimately involved. What happened with him and Haskins at the end of the season, where Snyder pulls him out because Snyder thinks he's hurt, right? Very telling. So I'm not saying that the Cowboys are the only organization, but that it's out in the open in Dallas. But if you're Mike Zimmer, I mean, you have to be crazy. I don't know. I hear, Urban Meyer's a name that's thrown around. It has been thrown around, and of course, it's being thrown around for the Browns job. It's going to be interesting. My only thought about Urban Meyer is, since when is the guy a quarterbacks guy? Since when is the guy this offensive genius? He ran this, college type spread offense. He's not the type of guy that fits the profile, unless you're a college guy like Jimmy Haslam is. Haslam, if you don't know, is like the top booster, super booster, I like to call him, at the University of Tennessee. So when Tennessee hires a head football coach at Tennessee, Jimmy Haslam's the number one guy involved who makes that call. That includes the school president, the athletic director, because he gives the most money to the school. So that's Jimmy Haslam. So when you hear that name, and he has had a relationship with Meyer for many years, intimate relationship, good friends, have been in contact. So I wouldn't certainly rule that out. And it does kind of make sense, especially with the departure of Dorsey. So we're going to have updates on all of this stuff as we ruminate over the future of these NFL teams. And can't wait to autopsy, if you will, the Patriots game coming up. And don't forget about Fourth Quarter Live. That's coming up here on Fancred for the fourth quarter of the Patriots game on Saturday. I want you to jump on this app, and you're going to have a cast of top flight sports media people, including, in all likelihood, Mike Felger of 98.5 The Sports Hub, right here during Fourth Quarter Live. We're the only place that does it. You can hang out and you can interact with the guys as well. That's coming up Saturday for New England and the Titans. It's going to be a great game. Look forward to it. It's going to be a huge week. I mean, the Minnesota Saints game, unbelievable game. Can't wait to watch that one, among others. But I really want to thank Andrew Galinas, who did an unbelievable job today, pinch hitting for Cam Smith. Flawless performance. If we had a drop, we would have the applause drop going right now. I'd be hitting it right now myself. And I want to thank everybody else instrumental in making this show happen every day. It's a delight to come in here and do the show. We'll be back with you next week. We're going to have some amazing guests that you haven't seen or heard before. Some A-listers are right around the corner here on Sports by Brooks on Fancred. So it's going to be fun. So, but that's going to do it for now from Los Angeles, California, LA Coliseum. My name is Brooks Melchior. For our producer, Andrew Galinas, this is Brooks Melchior saying so long. This has been Sports by Brooks on Fancred.